Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Today's session, Intro to Claude, an introduction to Anthropic's Claude for the workplace. And we've got a great host here to walk us through it today. I'm thrilled to welcome back Brian Sims. For those who haven't met Brian before, he's an educator and training leader working in the intersection of project management and generative AI. With 15 plus years experience in education and a dedicated, oh, wow.
Mhm.
15 plus years in education and also with project management, and the last five fully immersed in AI. At graduate school, Brian leads curriculum and training for professionals across government and private sector. If you've taken one of graduate school's AI courses or you have your eye on one, it's likely either Brian has built it or is teaching it. What people consistently tell us about Brian in his sessions that they're hands-on, they have a lot of substance, they're refreshing and easy to engage with. No jargon, no fluff, just practical skills that you can actually use. Today, he's tackling Claude, where it fits in the workplace, how it gets real results from it, and where good judgment is still needed to lead the way. So, Brian, off to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Amanda. Yes, and I just noticed I am, for some context here too, you'll see me looking on some different screens. I'm pretty immersed in our webinar environment. I've got you off to the left here. I will be keeping my eye on that Q&A area. I did see somebody asked a question already about is this being recorded? Will we be sent the recording? And yes to both of those, as Amanda mentioned. Right before we hit the recording button. So yes, you'll be getting a copy of this recording, and it is being recorded. But I say that too because yes, as Shige put in the chat there, I will try to keep my eye on the Q&A pod. We do have a lot of good stuff to get through, but I'll keep that pod in my periphery and try to answer questions as they come up, if it's relevant or if I'm not already, planning to get to it. So I'll try my best, I promise. All right, great. Well, welcome. Very nice to meet you. I do see some familiar names there in Zoom, so good to see some of you again. Let's go ahead and get started here with our intro to Claude. Claude is incredibly exciting. If you haven't used Claude, I'll give you a demo of its various environments here today. It's one of my favorite tools, if not to play favorites. Anthropic is not paying me to say this, but it really is, I think, one of my favorites, if not my favorite. It's so versatile and can do so many different things. So I'm very excited to be a champion of it today and to introduce it. We'll talk over the next hour about what Claude is. I'll give you some tips on how to best work with it and talk a little bit about how I choose to work with it. We'll cover some of the main features, projects, which are really exciting. If nothing else, you'll walk away with this. A comment I often get in class is, "Oh, once I show projects, they're like, where was this 6 months ago?" So you'll get that for free today. So stick around for projects. We'll talk artifacts, which is something semi-unique to Claude. So I'll showcase that. Something that I think is, or I know is extremely important to any sort of AI that you're interacting with, personalization. Pardon me. So we'll talk a little bit about, things that you need to know for personalizing Claude for your own use and making squeezing the most juice out of using Claude, and we'll talk about where it fits best. And if you've been in class with me before or seen past webinars, been on webinars with me in either the past or in the future, I always try to bring some fun and a different fun angle. I think the last one I did here for graduate school was on May the 4th, so it was all, Star Wars themed or uh, 70s space movie themed for copyright purposes. So I've got some fun in store for us here in this webinar as well that hopefully you'll agree brings a little life to the webinar. Um, One thing I do talk about in every single webinar, in every single class, for those of you who've heard this before, sorry to belabor the point, but I know, not every one of those names has seen me before. But I want us all to put this lens on or this cap on a mental shift that you need to make when dealing with AI, because really everything stems from this. I think the best advice I can possibly give when we're talking AI interaction is thinking of AI, as I talk about them in class, Think of them like humans, like a teammate, like a virtual assistant or an actual assistant, somebody that you're directing. For good and bad, they are your assistant, right? There's a lot of good that comes out of that. You have somebody who can do things for you and draft things for you and summarize things for you. And that's fantastic, right? That maybe they can take away some of the drudgery of your day-to-day work. But also for, some bad reasons too, right? You might, oh, that's wonderful that you did that. Thank you so much, Brian. But you're kind of new here, so I am going to want to validate your work and make sure that you have done this the right way. And I'm ultimately accountable for the work that you produce because you are, after all, just my assistant, and I'm, responsible for your output. So I think that's a real mental shift, and again, some of the best advice I can give folks in especially a lot of the fundamental and introductory classes. We'll see people using it a lot like search engines. Pardon me. And that's fine behavior. Like it's okay. Like no, the police aren't coming for you, for doing it that way. But I think it's misuse, right? It's a little bit like, buying an Escalade to go pick up the mail, right? Like again, I mean, that's your prerogative, I suppose, but it's, not a good use of the tool. So I want to talk, set up our framing here. And this is not something that's unique to Claude, but it is good mental framing. And Claude is particularly powerful, so this is a particularly good foundation to set, I think, as we begin our discussion with Claude. Also, kind of selfishly too, my fun spin on our introduction to Claude today. I was trying to think of something unique that I haven't done in other webinars and in courses and things. Is in kind of the spirit of treating Claude as our teammate and working with them as someone we direct. That's kind of the theme that I'm going to take with our webinar today. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to interview and hire, I think, probably Claude. Um, is my screen still sharing? I lost it. Oh, yes, there it goes. So we're going to actually do that. So we're going to go through the hiring process to add some life and some fun, I think, I hope, to Claude today. So let's go through our first bit. Let's see. Also has a sense of humor. Yeah, somebody mentions in QA. I once told him he sounded like my wife, and Claude said, "Oh, then they must be really smart." Yes, exactly. Yeah, Claude, and they'll pick up that too. We'll talk about this when we get to the personalization bit. If you're being funny with it, it may start to pick up some of that too. So, yeah, Claude can pick up on some of that. Okay, so let's go through this process with our buddy Claude here. Let's start with the interview, as any hiring process does. I wanted to let you know, right, because you're going to be on the hiring team here with me. They have, Claude sent us our resume, so there's a resume. It's not, a ton going on, but robust. They're currently working at Anthropic, doing really good work there. Anthropic is an AI safety company, or that's what they call themselves, doing good stuff there. Like a lot of their peers, they are currently using large language models to understand and generate text. So kind of par for the course there, like like some of their rival, competitor people who are also applying for the job with us. But it's as good, right? They're more than search engines. They're actually, bringing something new to the table for us. And they've evolved over time. Claude is currently in its fourth generation. We'll see some of the different models that are part of that family when we go out into our demo environment. But it's constantly improving. So I was really impressed by the phone interview that we did. It's in its fourth generation now. And again, it's more than a search engine, right? It's giving us something new. It's not just, finding answers for us. It's going out and doing a bit of research as is necessary, but actually bringing something genuinely new back to us. So I really think it could bring something valuable back to us if we made it part of our team. As I was going through the initial interview, I came to understand it has read, I mean, it's very impressive. It's read like the compendium of human knowledge, right? It has read every book, every website, every article, tons of code. It's like born on code. In fact, that's kind of how it started since it was little. It started in a code space. So That's actually really benefited Claude as it's gotten bigger and matured, because now that everything is very Claude focused and vibe coding has gotten so big, and popular, and has enabled so many different things like apps and websites to be built, and the Claude is really shining now, because that's where it was born. Like it's kind of literally made for that. Um, And again, it's much more than a search engine, because it's done all of this training on all of these books and all these different resources. It's more than just a regurgitator of resources and things. It is actually bringing something new to the table. So thinking of it like like a well-read collaborator and not just a database or a dumper of resources is, I think, really useful framing here. Um, but we certainly, especially because they'll be new to our environment. We'll want to make sure that it because it doesn't know us, right? It doesn't know our environment exactly. It doesn't know how we the words we use and the jargon and how we like to see things exactly. So we'll certainly want to verify that it's got its facts in line. It's fairly new to the workforce and our workforce specifically. So we'll certainly want to make sure that we verify everything. Um, but to give you a little bit more information about how it works, and in fact, I'll be able to show you some of this here in a little bit too. I mentioned that it was in its fourth generation at the moment. There are three model tiers. The smallest is what they call haiku. And that's for quick answers. And luckily, they've done a good job with their user interface, because you can hover over these, and as a you don't have to memorize this, because as you're in the interface, it'll remind you of what each of these do. Haiku is for good, fast, cheap stuff. If you need an answer really quick, Haiku is kind of the one to go to. Sonnet is your everyday driver, and again, it remembers it reminds you of this when you're in the interface. So that's probably your default. Especially if you're, watching your usage, and if you have certain limits, maybe you're on a plan, that you can only use a certain amount for a certain number of hours during the day or something like that. Sonnet's probably a good everyday driver. So that's why Claude uses that as its default. Nice kind of meeting in the middle. It does have Opus available as well, for really deep reasoning, and if you need something to do a lot of research with. So this in and of itself isn't necessarily, groundbreaking. If you've used other AI models, too, they usually kind of have that follow that same rule of three. They have a fast model, an everyday driver, and something for deeper reasoning. And also, just like other AI assistants that you may have interacted with, you can turn up the thinking, and they may have different levels of reasoning that you can kind of play with a little bit as well. Something that is really impressive about Claude, and it was the first one to do this. We are now seeing start some of the other AI assistants falling in line with this, and it's becoming kind of a bit of a standard. So it was really nice actually to see that Claude was one of the first folks to do this, first people to do this. Is its context window, if you're using the Opus one, which is that deepest reasoning one, it's 4.7 now. Excuse me. It has what they call a context window. So you can kind of think of that as like it's short or mid-term memory almost, of up to 1 million what they call tokens. So tokens are, you can think of it as little bits of information. So it can remember like 1 million little bits of information, before it starts to, information starts to get a little fuzzy on it. And to just add a little bit of perspective, before it made this leap to 1 million tokens, kind of industry standard was like 200,000. So when everybody was kind of doing 200,000, which was like, a Harry Potter book or so, so that was a lot, right? 200,000 was impressive, an impressive amount of tokens. When Claude came out with this million, that was a really, really big deal. And now we're starting to see, again, some of the other folks fall in line with that. Something to keep in mind, I'll just kind of seed here. This isn't Claude specific, but do be aware, this will pop up later in our webinar as well. When you're prompting with Claude or any AI assistant, your prompt the files that you upload, what Claude responds, everything that's in the history, that all counts for these things that I have here. It's all part of your context window. All of that eats up tokens. So every time you put in a new prompt, it'll read the chat history, look at the documents you attached. It has to remember all of that to kind of get context again. So this will come up. We'll talk a little bit later in our webinar about prompt engineering and some prompting best practices. So that's kind of something to keep in mind, again, if you're kind of monitoring your usage. Knowing that, and again, this will come up a little bit later, keep this in the dog ear this for a little bit later in our webinar. A good rule of thumb, just now you can kind of think of it as hygienically, but again, later when we talk prompting, this will come back up. A good rule of thumb is if you're starting a new topic, switch chats. For token usage and some other reasons too. Whenever you're switching topics, make a new chat. And because, right, too, you're starting a new topic, maybe, we've been talking something that, very deep in research, maybe Opus was good for that, but maybe say my new topic is, a lot lot lighter weight. We don't need to burn up the same tokens or something. We could start a new chat and use haiku, say, for our next item. But anyway, this is a lot of background information about Claude. Let me go out to a demo environment here and show you around a little bit. I am going to pop up Claude here. So you can get to it a few different ways. And we will talk about some of those here. But I'm going to go here to Claude.ai. I have an account. You can start for free. I think that's a great way. Most AI assistants have this as well. Pardon me. I would recommend getting an account because just like with other AI assistants, it's nice because it starts to log your chats, and you can go back to those. And if once you have an account where you've logged in, as you start to interact with it, and again, this will come back up when we start to talk personalization and different things. The more you start to use it and work with it, as you get to know it, it gets to know you. And again, that'll be a real thread that we'll pull on today. I have a team plan and a personal plan, so I'm going to go to my team one here. So this is a little bit about the interface, just like other AI assistants that you may have worked with. It's got a little panel that you can open and close. So when you want to start new chats, you can do that here. You can search through previous chats if you'd like. Projects, which we'll talk about. Again, I'm part of a team plan, so this appears here. Something I won't talk about today. Artifacts, which we'll look at. Customize, which we'll speak about a little bit here. But it's got this little side panel. You can manipulate your settings down here by clicking on your icon, which I started to do already to switch between my plans. We'll come back here and talk about this a little bit later, but you can access that really easy. Just click on your little icon and go to settings. A bunch of things that you can find back here. I'll go back for now, though. This is kind of the main territory right here, though. Like other AI assistants, good news, right? If you've never used Claude before, they all kind of look the same. There's certainly little nuances that change from system to system. But here's your prompt window, like others that you've probably seen. It even has an incognito. Claude calls it incognito. Some others call it private browsing or temporary chat or something. But you can, up here on the right, click that, and it kind of goes dark, a little dark mode like you just saw it do. And, these are chats that aren't saved or added to memory. It's still visible to your admin if you're part of a team plan, which I am. So again, use appropriate levels of caution and things. But yeah, so kind of standard features there. Just like some of the others that you've probably interacted with, we could type our prompts right here. We can switch between those modes that we talked about. And as I mentioned earlier, right, if you forget what all of them do, I like something that Claude does that not all the other AI assistants do. It reminds you what each of them does and some of the things that you need to be aware of. So for example, Opus 4.7, it says most capable for ambitious work. And it reminds you too, let's be cautious. Let's see if I can get that thing to come back up. It consumes usage limits faster than other models. So are you sure this is what you want to use? Great for ambitious work, as it says, deep reasoning and things. But let's make sure, you really want to use that. Sonnet, this is the default. Good for everyday work. Haiku, and you can turn on this adaptive thinking. You could, if you wanted to. I've never really found great utility in this, other than say I did have kind of a negative experience, to be honest, when Opus 4.7 first came out. My first few prompts with it, it was new, it was a baby, so it had bugs. So when for that would maybe be a reason. There's probably others when you might want to go to an older model. But you can access some of those for at least a limited time as new ones come out. Little plus icon here if you want to add files or go to skills, which we'll talk about a little bit later today, or access connectors and styles, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So fairly typical interface here. While we're in this demo environment, I want to show you how Claude works, right? Because we're trying to make a hiring decision today, and I want you to have a fairly good sense of this. So in this, I am going to ask it a question, like we do in some interview scenarios. That's a bad prompt, what I put in there. Let me put in a better one. I'm going to say, and we'll keep it on Sonnet. As it's thinking, I'm going to tell it, I am a program analyst at a federal agency. Over the last 2 quarters, our average grant application processing time rose from this number of days to this number of days. Walk me through what could be driving this increase. Give me your reasoning step by step, then produce 3 diagnostic questions I should answer before I act. It says, "Oh, good framing. This is exactly the kind of problem you were where acting before diagnosing needs tends to make things worse." Okay, good. Well, thank you for agreeing with me, Claude. And here's that reasoning: step 1, step 2, step 3. Take a look at this, especially if you happen to be a program analyst at a federal agency who deals with grant applications processing time. Let me know in the Q&A area if you care to, if this passes the sniff test. 2 quarters significant enough that something definitely changed, sure. Was it gradually or step by step? Good thing to know. Processing time can increase in 2 ways: more applications or the same applications taking longer to move through. Map the process. Okay, well, thank you. It seems to have thought out. It took, and it responded really quickly too, right? I hadn't even read the whole question when it responded. So here's some good questions to ask first. Where's the pipeline accumulating? That seems like a good question. What was the change exactly? Yeah, good question. Was there any point in disruptions? Answer all 3. Capacity problem. And look at this. Look, that's a good interview scenario. It said, do you want me to help you and do a data pull and diagnostic framework for any of these? Oh, great. I love the initiative. Um, Having fun with our interview scenario here. So that's a pretty good one. Good response, I think. Let's pretend we're only asking one question in our interview scenario. So what do you think, hiring committee? Should we move forward with Claude? Are you impressed enough? Yes, you do. Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and hire this guy. We'll move into new hire training. He passed the interview. He looks a little disheveled. He looks a little confused. AI seems to think that new hires just need sticky notes on everything. So that's kind of a funny observation there. But here he is. He looks a little overwhelmed, but we've got a good new hire program for him. We'll bring him up to speed here pretty quickly. So since he's new on the job, he needs to know his way around, excuse me, and how we do things. Let's give him a good framework under which to operate. If you're new to AI and new to maybe prompting with AI, something to keep in mind is there is a whole field out there called prompt engineering. And within prompt engineering, there are these things out there called prompt frameworks. We talk about a lot of these in class. Um, Something useful to leave you with in this webinar is there are all sorts of frameworks out there. But generally, they'll have some combination of what you see on the screen in front of you. And I like a good mnemonic, pardon me. So some of them are kind of cutesy and easy to remember. Usually they'll have something that speaks to context. So who do you want the AI to act as, or who are you writing for? What are you working on? What's going on here? Give some sort of context. The task, what do you need the AI to do? Format, what are you looking for? Are there any constraints too that it needs to know about? How should I talk? What length are you looking for? Anything that I need to avoid, right? And examples are fantastic. whenever you can provide those. Those are kind of like gold for your AI. Pardon me. Something that I've started saying more recently in class, and I think is a really good takeaway, right? You can put in uh, something extremely vague, and AI is going to answer you, right? It has read a whole lot. Like it's real good at responding, and it's very anxious too. But let's say, any one of these components, if you haven't answered that, it will make it up, right? It will come back with something. So let's give it the least amount of reasons to make something up as possible, right? Let's cover as much ground as you possibly can. And sometimes you can't, right? Sometimes you're ideating, right? And you just don't know, and that's okay. But keep inventory of that. If you do know, like the audience, tell it. If you don't know what length, I don't know. I don't really care. Let's work on that. That's also good information to feed your AI. I'm not really sure what length. Maybe you can have some good suggestions. That's a possibly something that you could include. But anyway, check out prompt frameworks. That's a good whether you're working with Claude or any other. Um, Good kind of AI usage tip, especially as Claude's getting more familiar with the team. And since he's going to be a member of our team, we're going to want him to follow a very structured pattern because we do really care about, by the way, at our company, we care about token usage. And yeah, you could probably prompt chain your way. In fact, you certainly could prompt chain your way just by asking, a string of 3 and 4 word questions to get you to some output. Sure, but we kind of want to control our cost at our organization, right? And so if you can put in a little bit of extra effort and kind of combine those questions, right? Remember, we talked about this before. Each time you send a prompt, it reads that whole chat history and looks at all those documents and things. So we want to be a little bit more efficient at our company. So we want to make sure Claude knows that, hey, when you're prompting, let's be efficient and try to get as much in those prompts as possible. So to kind of give some examples of that, pardon me, this is what that would look like. We've all probably done this one on the left. I know I certainly have. We could attach something and say, hey, can you give me a summary here? But a much stronger one is what you might see on the right, for example. I'm a privacy officer with a health agency. Summarize the attached. This is what it is. And this is, what it covers. This is who it's for. And this is what I'm looking for. What's the scope? Give me 3 gaps, some recommendations. I want your output in under a certain amount of words, for example. And I want it, in this particular tone, right? Much, much clearer than a summary, right? Because this is so open-ended here on the left. It could give you, bullets, a research paper, who knows, right? A lot less ambiguity with our prompt here on the right, for example. So let's see this in action too. Let's see how Claude handles this. Like we talked about earlier too, new prompt, new or new topic, new prompt. So I will drink my own Kool-Aid here and start a new chat. I've grabbed a file that recently was released. Here, let me just show you what it is first. Let me close the bookmarks here. This is the GAO's report from a few days ago, weeks ago, VA's progress on security controls for PHI. So this came out a couple days ago. I don't know, 40, 50-page report here. So this is a lot, right? It's got a lot going on, a lot of abbreviations. This would take take a good lunch break to read, right? Especially if you were really new to the topic, those sorts of things. So let's now that we got this new intern, we got this new assistant here. Let's see if what he can make of it. So I'm going to just drag this over and drop a file into chat here, and let's see how Claude handles it. I am going to give him the prompt. Read the attached report on PHI. You know what? I'll hit send so he can be thinking while we're doing this. Read the attached report on PHI security, public health security. Give me the main conclusion, 3 supporting findings, and 1 open question I should ask the audit team. You can always tell that it's still thinking because it hasn't. Oh, it stopped already. Yep, there was a it'll show the little stop icon until while it's still thinking there. But all right, so let's see. Here's a quick brief on that GAO report. That was incredibly fast. It's a 40-page document. Main conclusion: VA's made some meaningful progress securing veterans PHI, having implemented 3 of the 13 recommendations and partially implementing 3 of the others as of March 2026. But work remains to fully close the identified gaps. Here's the findings. I asked it for 3. It gave me 3. PHI shared agreements are solid. Million veterans at a real security gap. 1 recommendation remains entirely unaddressed. Okay. 1 open question for the audit team. And here it is. Was that risk-based selection framework actually completed and put into practice? And if so, which business associates have been flagged as high risk? Okay, great. Awesome. It did exactly what I asked. Nicely done, Claude. Um, I could also, right, and there was a lot in there too. One of the reasons, by the way, that I pulled that up, there was a lot in there. There were graphics. It wasn't just text. In fact, here, let me pull that up again to just really drive that home. And again, Claude can do this natively, right? It was kind of born to do this type of thing, where other AI assistants may have to gloss over this kind of thing. Claude, again, was kind of born for this, right? It's able to synthesize these in ways that some others might struggle. Let me get back down here. I think it was on page like 10-ish or so. Yeah, see, it's able to turn this into, vector and extract the text, and others are catching up. But it does a really, really good job of this. So, impressive. Claude's doing great. All right, so hiring team. We have more to do here, but how are we feeling about Claude so far? Thinks like it's doing okay. Gave it some pretty easy stuff to do on its first day. I think he's doing all right. Right? Okay. Seeing some good reactions. Thank you all for playing along, by the way. Um, excuse me. Um, let's test them a little bit further. I want to talk a little bit about memory too. We saw when we were looking at the interface earlier. Um, um, uh, you know what? Actually, let me switch to the app too, because I want you all to see that when I talk about this one. I think that'll be nice to see too. Um, as I mentioned, if you're new to Claude or new to any AI assistant, the more you interact with it, the more that you'll learn it and it'll learn you, right? And it begins to understand more about your preferences and the way that you like things, and they call that memory, artificial intelligence memory. See what they're doing there? Excuse me. Um, and this is an interesting thing to look at from time to time. You can, regardless of plan, even if you're on free plans, the more you chat with it, the more it will build memories of what you like and your preferences and things like that. Let me show you how to do this. You have some autonomy here, and you can change preferences. So here I'm in the app, or I'm sorry, here I'm in the web interface. Let's see. How can you be sure? Haven't read the report yourself. Great question. Let me talk about that too. We have a short answer is we have a whole class on that. Let's see. Let me get our app over here. Let's see this, by the way. So this is the app interface. And I use personal preference, maybe, but I use Claude Code for all sorts of stuff. But this is the app interface. So if you've not seen this before, this is what it looks like. Claude AI is basically the equivalent of this first tab over here, which is chat. And it looks very similar, right? Still has this little panel that you can open and close. Has projects, artifacts, that Ask Graduate School thing, because right, I'm on a team, and ways to customize it. So this is sort of the equivalent of that chat AI interface. Because of the plan that I'm on, I also have access to Claude Cowork, which is a cool kind of step up from chat. Pardon me, and Claude Code, which I use all the time. And this is again my team plan. But this is what the interface looks like, and we're again just doing an introduction here, so I'm not going to go too deep into, or really deep at all into Cowork or Code. Just know that, like, if you're impressed by chat, buckle in when we get to co-work, when you can get to co-work and code, because it is, if you think chat is impressive and the things you can do here are impressive, co-work and code is a whole nother ball of wax. But we're talking memory here. So I'm in the app. I'm going to go here and go to, yeah, definitely thumbs up for sure. I'm going to go to settings here and in the app. Um, and lots of different things. I think this is worth 10 minutes of your day, by the way, with any of your AI assistants. But lots of things you can do here. Click on the settings button. I'm here in general just to give you a little tour back here. Things that I find particularly useful. You can have some fun with this, by the way. You can give it your name and, hey, what do you want it to call you? That can be fun. What best describes your work? You can give it some of this information if you care to. Instructions for Claude. And I've seen people in class, by the way, give it like, this is really powerful, by the way. And whatever instructions that you give, Claude supersedes memory, by the way. So if you want something that is, like memories can fade, they're a little fallible, those types of things, and we'll get to memories and I'll show them to you. But something to always be true and keep, as it says here, we'll keep these things in mind across chats and co-work. Instructions is the way to go. Instructions is a little more concrete than memories. So like for me, for example, I have always asked me clarifying questions before starting any non-trivial task. So I just always want that to be the case. I don't ever want it to assume. So that's something that I've asked Claude to do. You might say never use M dashes or always capitalize veterans or whatever, right? If you have some universal truth, putting it here in instructions is a good thing to do. But other little things you can play with here. Let's see. Here under capabilities, here you can play with your memory settings, and this is what I wanted to call out in particular. You can give it access or not to search and reference chats. And as it says here, allow Claude to search for relevant details in past chats. That is on by default, but as you can see, you can turn that off. Now, if you're on an enterprise plan, certain things may or may not be up to you. So if you come here and, oh, I can't toggle it, that could be what's at play. Maybe your organization or agency has turned that off for everybody and you can't mess with it. But if you're not, this is something that Joe user generally can turn off and on. This other one here, and this is the operative one in our case, generate memory from chat history. It says allow Claude to remember relevant context from your chats. This setting controls memory for both chat and projects. So again, that's something you can turn on or off. And I won't elaborate much further because we have limited time. But this is an interesting thing to go in and take inventory of. I have looked at this before, and it's interesting to see what it picks up. It usually is pretty darn good. But sometimes it's, oh no, that's why I'm getting bogus answers. I just asked questions about this particular thing just out of interest. I don't like do that for a living. No. So again, worth your time. Hit that little icon down there in the bottom right. Come under capabilities and see what it's remembering about you. And again, if you're just getting started, it's going to remember nothing about you. But that's a good thing to check. And again, it is available on all plans. So I wanted to point that out. And while we were here, this is the app. So that's what that interface looks like. It's also available as an app, as you maybe more conventionally think of it, on your phone. And that's really cool because the three systems can talk to each other. Again, more advanced thing, but if you want to really double down into Claude, it's awesome because you can be the three can talk to each other, the web and the app on your desktop and the app on your phone. Really cool stuff you can do there. The question that came up, I don't want to leave it unaddressed, is how do you know that what Claude is highlighting is correct? And the short answer is you like I was saying at the beginning of the webinar, you have to verify everything, right? And something that we talk about a lot in class, we have some classes like that are data and analyst specific and leadership specific and things like that, where the Cliffs Notes version is start with verification. And the the mid-range answer to that question is also proportional to the task, right? Or proportional to the importance of the task is kind of the quick answer to that. If it's just, hey, give me what, if it's, summarize this email, I'm just out of interest, what were the big changes? Maybe that doesn't need whatever. But if it's, this is, for this big board meeting, this is going to somebody really important. There's a few different tactics that we talk about in some classes you can use multiple assistants maybe to check it. Spot test certain facts and figures is another thing. So a whole bunch of methods out there to kind of, we have a 7-point checklist, in fact, in some classes on how to validate AI's output. And you don't always need to use all seven necessarily, but um, proportional to the importance of the task. There are some best practices for sure. Does Clause summarize the document or it searches the web? Oh, great question. Yeah, somebody asked in the Q&A area, does it summarize the document or does it search the web? Short answer to that is it can do whatever you tell it to do. Default, if we go back into a demo environment, I'll try to remember to show it to you. You can turn off web search being enabled on or off, which is, by the way, another good token saving tip, disabling web search. So one way to do that is disable web search, and then it just sticks to the document and its own knowledge base. But another is you can just in plain language in the prompt say, using only this document, don't go anywhere else, summarize this document. I don't want any outside influencers or something like that. Oh, cool, man, the questions are rolling in. This is good. Let's see. Oh, yes, actually, another question. Can you toggle between the different hats you might wear? That is actually a fantastic segue into what we're about to talk about. So great question there in the chat. I'll get to it. So good. Claude is doing fantastic here. We're about to give him some more responsibility. How are we doing on time? Actually, right on time. Killing it, guys. We're doing great. Um, excuse me. So he's got his employee badge. Notice I'm trying to do some funny things on here, by the way. His department, yes. Speaking of wearing many hats, like we have, he's in all the departments, and he doesn't need lunch breaks and works all the time. What a guy. Um, yes. So let's give him some more responsibility. This, I think, to that question that came up in Q&A, is maybe a good reason to use projects. So I showed you actually just a few moments ago when we were talking memory. Memory applies, right? This is what it's learned about you. If you've given Claude the ability to remember things from previous chats and learn a little bit about you, it will use that memory in later chats, right? So, intentionally sensational example, right? If I have told it like I run a barbershop and all my questions are always about barbershop stuff or biking or whatever, right? Later when I ask it about something else, it'll say, well, let me kind of, oh, I know you're a barber and that's what you do. So let me put this in kind of barbershop terms, right? And it knows that about me, so it'll try to speak my language, as it were, right? Um, which is a fantastic feature. But to actually exactly one of the questions in the Q&A area, sometimes that's not good, right? Maybe another intentionally drastic example, but it'll make the point, I think. Let's say, obviously follow your organizations and agencies guidelines, but like I have an account and I have like kind of my work life and my personal life. And I don't want those two to mix. Or maybe it's different projects at work. Maybe that's an even better example. And this one activity, I don't want the rules of that activity to be influenced by the rules of this other activity, right? And I'm afraid that if I'm just kind of putting it all into the general category of chat here in Claude, that it's going to get a little messy and muddled, right? That is the perfect use case for projects. Um, Also, it's a really good time saver, as it says too. So I'll go into a demo environment here in a little bit. Let me talk a little bit more about what projects are. But first of all, so stick to the slide for a little bit here. So memory knows, general, you in general, if that's something that's been enabled, but it's not like custom tailored to a project specifically. So that if you really need something custom for an initiative, think project. Also, again, just as a time saver, if you're constantly, okay, hey, I'm working on this project again. I have a new question. Boy, this is getting a little tedious. You can think, projects, this is what that tab might be useful for. Projects are a dedicated workspace where you decide how the memory is handled. Do you want this project to know about this barbershop stuff? Do you want this project to follow the rules of the larger Claude or not? And you can decide that when you create it. Again, this is that bit that I mentioned at the beginning. Usually, when I talk about this in class, people are like, "Holy, uh, where was this 6 months ago? Oh my gosh, this would have been such a life changer. This is worth the price of admission. I think projects are awesome. So you get to decide when you make the project. You can give it, or you do give it. You give it custom instructions. So these are the standing orders for Claude. That it just knows what to do. You give it its own knowledge base, and I'll show you this very, very briefly here in just a moment. Um, and it's available on these certain plans here. It's you don't see these on the free plan, but if you have a Pro, Max, Team, Enterprise, those types of things, you have projects available to you. So let me get out quickly. How are we doing on time? Doing okay still. To a demo environment. I'll use Claude.ai because I know not everybody's going to have one of those Buku plans, or maybe not the whole the app. And again, let me go to our sidebar here and I'll go to projects. Now I have a couple of projects that I've used for other demos and things. I'll just close the sidebar for the sake of space. I'm going to make a new project here, and I've got some stuff pre-typed for the sake of time. And I'm going to make a new project. So here's your old projects down here. Notice, by the way, too, it's got some stuff already preloaded. So if you are doing something, it's got a little template you can use. I like that it does that. I'm going to click Create a New Project. What are you working on? We're going to do a webinar test here for no particular reason. What are you trying to achieve? We're just testing. That's very not very exciting, is it? And notice here, I can say is this available to everybody in graduate school, or am I going to make this private? Let's say I'm going to make this available to everybody, which, by the way, I've worked with organizations who, and there are many ways to accomplish something similar, but this is also kind of interesting. I worked with an HR team at an organization a couple months ago who, when they learned about the power of projects, were like, we can make a project that is specifically trained on, say, all of our HR material. And we've given it the instructions, we've given it the knowledge base, and we make this available to everybody. Now people can just come into that project, which everybody has access to, and can ask it questions. And it's only trained on our material. We've given it the instructions. It only does what we say, right? So that's was kind of cool for them. So I'm giving it a test. We'll make this test here. Let me say create. Oh, permission denied. Oh, that's funny. What permission was denied? I'm pretty sure I manage this account too, so that's funny. Um, and here, let's see, shared with my org, created by me. Activity created by. All right, so I mentioned. So here's the chat window. I can now have chats with this. Man, getting lots of questions here. I hope I have enough time to get to some of these. um, uh, 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 Chat interface that you're familiar with as we chat with this project environment. The chats will be logged here. Memory. We at creation. I wonder what that error that came up was. That was a little interesting. I need to look at that guy. Maybe it's because something has changed in our organizational structure. But I can add specific instructions, add tools for it to call, and save those instructions. Again, it'll pull that. And again, you can save that. And as an editor or as a creator of a project, you can edit those at any time. And you can give it specific files that, again, this is its knowledge base, and it'll just call these and it'll just know, right? That's its knowledge base. And as a creator of one, you can you're fully in control. That was really weird that it gave me that. Let me try another one here really quick because I want to show you all this. Let me just make it private. Let's see if that makes a difference. Two, test two. I'm gonna make a private one. This one's being squirrely. It's not asking me the memory question. I wanted to show you how it asks in the settings when you add it. Am I losing it? Let me try one last time. Your projects. I'm making a new one. Not asking me the memory question. Projects will show here after a few chats. Huh. Anyway, well, I'll look at that. Maybe it's something with our team account. But anyway, projects are really transformative in that, again, as I'm saying, but not able to demonstrate right now. Maybe it has something to do with our team account. That's really interesting. It can share the information and the memory or not. So. Um, there are other things I want to make you aware of. I know we only have a couple of minutes left, and we are getting such great questions in the chat too. So I want to cover them all. Artifacts too. I'll very quickly. I'll stay maybe in our demo environment and then look over here to the questions. I'll try to get to as many of those as I possibly can. Artifacts. And let me actually even switch over to my other account because I know in my personal account I have actual artifacts that I can show. Artifacts are content blocks that Claude creates that work alongside your chat. And Claude has some plans to make some updates to these. So right now, obviously, Claude sees it too, because again, they're updating these. Um, uh, it used to work that if you were working with Claude and you said, create a table that, organizes this information, it would give you something that you could say, right, copy and paste. And that was nice. An advancement of that was one of their was what you see here, them making these artifacts. So it could give you a document that you could use and edit or download or do those sorts of things. They are going to, pardon me, make some improvements to that here pretty quickly. And I think some of that has started to roll out on certain plans. They come out, and some of them come out and kind of, or historically have come out as weird file types that aren't totally useful to people other than like coders. So I know a change that they're making now and slowly rolling out is making it more like Office friendly, not JSX files, but like Word files and PowerPoint files, Excel files, and like live dashboards that you can interact with, not so static. So artifacts is something that they're really improving on, and that's a cool feature, right? I've started to do this a lot in my own work. Like, yeah, sure, you can make this a table, and Claude is really good at this. I could make this data a table, but you know what else would be cool is if we made, say, hopefully this is a decent example. Maybe you could display this as a heat map that I could interact with or something like that. That would be a lot more interesting to present to leadership. Um, there are also really great things. Gosh, there's so much to show with Claude. The short answer is take the course. We talk about it all. We there's so much there's so much to see. But here quickly, while I'm in capabilities, um, there are also skills. Customize shows up on the ribbon too. You can get to it a couple of ways under capabilities and go to customize, or over here in the ribbon, you can go to customize. I wanted to talk about skills. There are libraries of skills that you can give Claude that are changing all the time. Um, and so like if you do like design work or or web building work or like you can even create new skills for yourself that are customized to the type of work that you do. You can work with Claude to create these new skills and like create it once, say either for yourself or for your department department or for your organization, and make it available to everybody in your organization. And then everybody, when you ask it to do a particular task, um, every Claude can call on that same skill, and then everybody's following the same processes and procedures because everybody has access to the same skills if we're all using the same Claude, right? So that's another kind of unifying thing, either for your own work or for an organization. Again, there's skills, and hopefully that summary just made sense. That's a whole, it's a really exciting feature of Claude. Also native within Claude. One last thing I wanted to call out, and then I'll use our last couple of minutes here to look at some of these questions. I wanted to call out too, because I think this is big kind of news. Um, you may have seen, or you may use some of these now. Here in the interface, they have these things called styles. It's funny because, okay, starting, they've changed the language a little bit. You can ask Claude to, I want you to, do this summary or do this particular task, and but I want you to do it in, a very formal style or very explanatory style or something. Um, uh, but they have already started the work of it. As it says here, they're migrating these. This is sort of being assimilated into those skills, which I just described. They as Anthropic has talked about it, by June 15th, they expect that work to be done. So styles aren't going away or are kind of going away, but they're sort of being assimilated into skills. So what exactly that will look like, I don't know. But you will eventually see styles go away if you are, a user of styles, and it'll just become a skill. Maybe it'll work like the same way you call on other skills, by using, forward slash. You may say, forward slash explanatory. I want you to write this summary, but forward slash explanatory or something like that. So we'll see how that rolls out. I don't know that I've seen any documentation on how they do that. Um, Anyway, hopefully I've shared enough to at least wet your whistle about who Claude is and how he operates. We do have some questions here, which I'll get to. I at least wanted to show you this because I worked really hard on these images. Claude does make it, right? He's part of the team. We're really happy to have him. He's he made it through the process. He knows our way of working, and he does end up making it. Um, I really like working with him. I work with him every day. So Stephanie, to one of the questions here, yeah. So a good to your question about toggling between the hats you might wear. I think projects is a great use case for that. Um, uh, oh yeah, so another question in the chat. When you surpass the million tokens, it will start to, you can keep chatting with it. You might see Claude do something like, I'm condensing our conversation, to try to best answer you, or some language like that. Technically, tactically, what happens is it will try to write itself a little summary so that it can continue to hang with you. Um, but practically speaking, it may, like, especially if you maybe started with a file, it will just take like a summary of that file. It'll make a summary of that file for itself, and hopefully not miss the finer points. So it will try to consolidate, and it'll do its best. But it'll, kind of like our long-term memory, right? Like maybe the finer bits will fade a little bit. So I wanted to answer that question for sure. Let's go to the next one. Okay. Oh yeah, best way to, somebody's asking a security related question. Oh, and I had this slide, but we didn't get to the slide. Yeah. Enter the security related type question. The follow certainly your organization or agency's acceptable use policy, number one, right? It surpasses anything that Brian says here or in class ever. Um, but kind of your best defense is, well, two things I'd say. One, be on an enterprise plan, because that offers the best in data protection. So being on an enterprise plan is awesome. The second best, or if you want to double dip and do both, is never put any sort of sensitive information into any one of these AI assistants, so Claude or any of them. Certainly not into a public model. Um, so never uploading any sort of PII, PHI, or pre-decision materials. If you want it to work on a document that has any of that stuff, simply remove that stuff from the document, or those types of things. But enterprise plan would go a long way, and follow your agency's rules. Let's see, got like another minute. Let's see if there's a theme by any of these. If you have Claude inline. Somebody asked a question, if you have Claude looking at a document, does that document become part of the knowledge base for a future project? There's a couple things going on in that question. Um, the If you upload a document, it will, depending on the settings that you saw there, if you have it allowed to create memories from your chats, yes, it will remember that you looked at a document like that one time if it finds that statistically significant, and that will become part of its memory. In that question, you also use the word project. So taking kind of the other possible way to answer that question, and then I think we have to adjourn. It is not the same, though, if you're asking that question through the project lens. It is not the same as adding it to your project's knowledge base. Like if you have adding files as a project knowledge base, and then like later in that project you attach it as part of your prompt. That isn't the same thing as adding it to your knowledge base, in case that was the angle of your question. Okay, great. Well, still some other questions up there. Um, and yes, I agree with some of the other comments. Yeah, Claude has shown really good potential here, and there was more to show you. I just got so much to say about Claude. The absolute a really good thing to leave you with here is let's see. Yeah, we do have the full course. It's AIC, AI for the Workplace with Claude. Encourage everybody to bring a workplace task or a personal task if you're using your own money to pay for the course. You will leave that class with a fully working Claude system. It's a really cool class, 2 days if you can make it. And we have classes that aren't on Claude. We have Gemini, just fundamentals for AI and prompting and those sorts of things. And the URL for that is seen on your screen here, graduateschool.edu/AI. That'll take you to the whole topic landing page. I think Claude did pretty well here. Here's his 30-day review. He's on time. He actually reads stuff, so that's good, better than some people. He doesn't ask for PTO, which is great. And I think we should use him. I think we'll stick around. So thank you all so much for coming today. Um, great to spend our lunch hour together. Hopefully we'll see you in class here pretty soon. And good luck as you get to know Claude even more. Take care, everybody.